I think you all know our country is in trouble. We are in a state of moral depravity. We're going to talk about that and much more today on Our Watch with Tim Thompson. Before we introduce our guests, I want to ask you, please like this video, share it with your friends, your family, your neighbors. Also, head on over to ourwatch.com, subscribe, become one of our watchmen. We'd really appreciate that. As you know, social media is always trying to shut us down because we deliver the truth. So we want to make sure you always have the best way to get to that truth. Again, ourwatch.com, subscribe, become one of our members, what we call our watchmen. We'd really appreciate that. Real excited today to introduce our guest. You all know her from One America News Network, and glad to have her on today. Alison Steinberg is here with us. Alison, thank you for joining us.
Hi, Tim. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be with you.
Yeah, it's good to have you. Before we get into all the issues that are going on around the world, talk to us about yourself. Let us know a little bit about your testimony.
Well, I am admittedly a newer Christian. I think Jesus had a big wake-up call over the course of the scamdemic. I was previously working in Los Angeles as a makeup artist for about a decade, and I didn't really pay much attention to politics because I was so consumed with climbing the career ladder. So COVID hit, my entire business was shut down, the salon I was working at shut down, and I suddenly had a lot of time on my hands. So at that time, I, after I was upset with being not able to work, I decided to look into some of what was going on. I was starting to hear a lot of things. You know, most people were so consumed with wearing masks and gloves to go to the grocery store and, staying 6 feet apart. And I just felt like something was a little bit off about that. I didn't really feel right about just complying with this, forced narrative that we have to stay 6 feet apart to keep each other safe. So I started doing my own research, went down a lot of rabbit holes, ended up having a massive wake-up call, got very politically involved around the LA scene. Shockingly, there were actually quite a bit of people in LA, contrary to popular belief, that were on the right side of things. So I joined some political groups out there and got involved. I did a lot of protesting on the streets of LA, and over the course of the last couple of years, I've just been in this continual sort of wake-up process. I learned that pretty much everything that I had learned my entire life was a total lie, which ultimately led me to Jesus. Thank goodness. I was not raised in a faith-based household, no religion really. Pretty much went to church on Christmas and maybe an Easter here and there. And so it was all very foreign to me. But ultimately, I was led to the Bible. I had this incredible moment where I had this Bible that was sitting on my shelf. A friend had given me a few months prior when I kind of started inquiring and asking questions, and I hadn't really touched it ever. So I felt called to go out and pull this Bible off my shelf and open it up, and finally started reading and was just immersed in it all night. I couldn't put it down. I was so just absorbed in everything that it had to say, and it was just so new and shocking to me, and I just didn't want to put it down. So at the time, I was actually living in Huntington Beach because there was a big resistance there against all of the COVID insanity, and I felt like I was with more like-minded people, but it was also very nice because I was obviously by the beautiful beach. So I didn't sleep a wink at all the night that I opened that Bible, and felt called to go down to the beach very early in the morning to watch the sunrise. I was just overwhelmed. I still had mascara running down my cheeks, and I didn't really know what I was doing, but I just knew I had to get to the beach to watch the sunrise. So I was like running. I just felt like I needed to get to this one particular spot. I sat down in the middle of the sand. The beach was empty. There was no one there. And I had my Bible in my hand and a notebook. And I just was, coming to this realization that, oh my gosh, like, the Lord, I need to accept him into my life. Like, this has to be done now. And in that moment that I had that, knocking at my heart, I looked up from the Bible that I was just like crying out tears of joy. And I looked up and I saw these two dolphins arching out over the water, over the sunrise. It was just the most beautiful, surreal moment. And I just knew right then and there that I had been saved and it was time to change my life forever. So I accepted Jesus at that point in time, and it was just the most beautiful moment. I will never forget it. And And from then on, I've just made it my life's mission to try to tell others the good news and try to awaken people from this deep slumber. It seems so many here, especially in California, have been absorbed into. They've just fed into the lies and the manipulative tactics from the left and the mainstream media. As a result of my coming to the knowledge of the Lord and coming to the realization that I had been lied to, I've now suddenly started working at One America News. I have my own show. I report on all the current events. I try to give a faith-based perspective on things, and it's just been this incredible turn of events that have forever changed my life, and I just owe it all to Jesus. So it's really been a wonderful, as traumatizing as the last 2 years were, it was also just a wonderful time that I'm so incredibly grateful for.
Well, what an awesome testimony. You know, I spoke at many of those events out there in Huntington Beach that you were referring to. I mean, it really was, it was a vanguard here in the state of California in many ways. And, you know, I'd love to hear your story because our church has grown tremendously in these last few years. My wife, as you know, wives have a way of keeping their husbands humble. My wife jokingly said, because we grew by 500%, and she said, "Tim, it's not because you're a good preacher. It's because you're the only. It's because we're the only one open." And there's some element of truth to that. But what I have found, because I've done more baptisms, I've been a pastor for over 20 years. I've done more baptisms in the last few years than I did all the years before that combined. Wow. And we just did another baptism, like 30 people just a couple days ago. And we just keep doing more and more baptisms. And I believe what we're seeing is freedom-loving Americans who may not have been Bible-believing Americans, but they were freedom-loving Americans. They saw their freedoms being stripped away from them, and it woke them up. And they realized, wait a minute, we have a Constitution, and the Constitution says that we've been endowed certain unalienable rights by our Creator. And well, wait a minute. So the rights don't come from the government; they come from our Creator, who's the Creator. And it's caused people to reach out to find the truth. And thankfully, God says, if you knock, He will open the door. If you seek, you will find. And we live in a nation that seems to be falling apart in front of our very eyes. And the Lord has the answer to all of this. As you have opportunity to, on a daily basis, cover the issues that are going on in our culture, what do you see as the most alarming things that are going on right now?
That's a great question. I think it's just overwhelmingly, collectively, all so alarming. I mean, the attack to strip us of our God-given rights and freedoms is literally happening in every facet of our lives. So it's hard to pinpoint and say exactly what the one most alarming area is. But I just think collectively, to me, the mass amount of people that are still blind. I know you just talked about this incredible awakening that we've had here, specifically in Southern California. It's been wonderful to see. And I know, as you sort of just mentioned, my story isn't really unique per se, because there are so many people coming to this realization and coming to the knowledge of the Lord, which is incredible. And I pray that so many others follow. But I think with that, there is still an incredible amount of people who are still just completely blind to what's happening, whether it be intentional or unintentional. Some people, willingly turn a blind eye to what's going on, which is a whole other story. But I think to me, the most concerning is the people who have, the events that have happened over the past couple of years haven't, forced them to look inward and see, that there is a lot of nefarious actions going on here, and that maybe something isn't quite right. Things aren't really adding up. Because if you go to the grocery store here, I'm in San Diego now. Most people, if you asked them, what do you think of the current political situation, they just wouldn't want to have a conversation, which is shocking to me, because if someone asked me, I would love to get engaged in a conversation like that. So I think it's just the mass amount of people that are still asleep, the mass amount of people that are still buying the media lies. It is terrifying how successful the mainstream media, the Mockingbird media, has been in their attempts to completely blind people to the truth. And unfortunately, a lot of people have bought into it, and a lot of people still reference the mainstream media for their truth, for their news, for their information. So that is why it's my mission to break those chains, get through the real information, and somehow try to shift the perspective so people understand what's really happening here. Because time is short. I mean, the clock is ticking. As you know, we don't have much time left. So I think it's our job to try to do the best we can there.
Yeah, God refers to us as the light of the world. Ephesians 5:11 says we're not supposed to take any part in the wicked deeds done in darkness. Rather, we are to expose them. And that's what light does. It exposes the wicked deeds done in darkness. You're doing that at One American News Network. How has your show been received?
It's been very well received. It has been a work in progress. I've faced some challenges thus far. Obviously, censorship is always an issue. I mean, I've had my social media accounts just completely banned, nuked off the face of the earth about 4 times now. So, I'm grateful for formerly known as Twitter, now X, being more so of a free speech platform. But I also think that we can't get too cozy with that, because obviously I have some reservations about Elon Musk, as I'm sure many of your viewers do as well. But it's a good taste to know what that feels like, again, to have the ability to post freely. But that's how it should be across the board, right? And so we should be able to post issues, have our First Amendment right, free speech, discuss real happenings around the world without this insane censorship and backlash. In fact, I just had a guest on my show last week, Alex Newman. He is fantastic, incredible journalist. If you aren't following him, you need to check him out. You should definitely interview him, Tim. But he's amazing, just a wealth of information, so brilliant, does an incredible job of exposing the globalist, nefarious plans and plot for world domination. But he was just on my show. He shared that he had his father actually passed away from the injection, and literally just shared a personal story, and YouTube gave him a strike on his account for literally sharing exactly what happened to him, and said it's classified as medical misinformation. So I think my biggest challenge has been pertaining to all of the pandemic related stuff. That seems to be the most censored issue. Thankfully, the owners at One American News are very pro free speech, so they support me. But I think it's getting past that, breaking out of this echo chamber, breaking into the mainstream. That is the biggest challenge.
Yeah. I've got a lot of my audience are ladies, and I wanted to ask you as a lady, one of the things that, well, you even said you came out of Hollywood area. You were involved in makeup and stuff like that, right? I'm a guy. I don't even know what I'm talking about, but but you come from that industry. What would you say to the ladies that are raising up daughters right now? What would your message be to them?
Well, I would say, first of all, I commend you. It must be incredibly challenging to be a mother at this time, but we are called for such a time as this to rise to the occasion, train up young, strong generation, of well-informed, educated, young adults, because we see Gen Z now. I mean, I look at the kids, I see these videos on TikTok, and it is just devastating. I feel like every child is just addicted to some screen or some technology or some device, and it's so sad to see. So I say, for one, get your kids the heck away from social media. Read as much as you can, get them into the Bible first and foremost. That is priority number one. Because you gotta be rooted in a strong foundation, and we should really be rooted in Scripture and all that Jesus has to say. I mean, it's an incredible guide for our lives. I wish I had known it sooner. I wish I was raised with it, but I wasn't. So I'm trying to play catch up now and learn all of that myself. But I think if we equip our children with the knowledge and the power and the strength to not back down to these tyrants that want to dictate and run our lives. And I think it's probably a hard conversation to have with children, but it's an important one, and it needs to be done. So I think just preparing them to be a strong generation to counter this weak generation that we find ourselves in.
Amen to that. Well, Alison, thank you. I appreciate you joining us today. How can people connect with you, and how can they watch your show on One American News Network?
Well, it's a little difficult because we have been so severely censored. We used to be on cable TV, AT&T, DirecTV, and Verizon, but we are in the middle of 3 major lawsuits currently for utilizing our First Amendment right again. So currently, the best way to find us is on our OANN Live app. You can download that in the App Store. Again, it's OANN Live. My show is In Focus with Alison Steinberg. It airs every day at 3 p.m. Pacific and then 6 p.m. Eastern. You can also find me on Twitter and Instagram at Alison, ALISON OAN.
All right, Alison Steinberg, thank you so much. Really appreciate all you're doing to get the truth out there. And I want to thank you all for tuning in today. Please go and watch Alison's show. She does an incredible job of shedding light on what's going on. Want to thank you all for joining us. Want to remind you to share this video with your friends, your family, your neighbors. Go over to ourwatch.com, subscribe, become one of our watchmen. We'd really appreciate that. And we will see you next time right here on Our Watch with Tim Thompson.